Yes, please. Nothing. It's Kirtan playing on. Proper Kirtan. Oh, from Dasa.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, thank you so much, Prabhu. Like, Prabhu is here. From Thursday, we had a program at NC State University where Prabhu gave a wonderful talk to students, at the university. Then Friday, Saturday, and then today, Prabhu went all the way to Charlotte to do the program, and then now he's back. And he's here to again give us his association. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for extending yourself to be here and to actually bless us with your association. So let's warmly welcome His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Hari! So today we are going to have a talk show. So I'm not going to say anything else. They are going to introduce and they are going to lead. So we have our host today, Advaita Chandra. Haribol! And Suvarna Radhika.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome again to the Sunday Feast program, and we're thrilled to have you today for a very special event, a talk show with His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So for those of you who may not know, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a globally renowned author, speaker, and lifestyle mentor. He has dedicated his life to traveling and preaching and sharing wisdom on spirituality. He's even preached in many prestigious places, such as top universities like Princeton, Cambridge, and Yale, and even spoke at top companies like Intel and Microsoft. In fact, Prabhu has written over 25 books, many of which were bestsellers. But I'll let the book talk for Adityanarayan Prabhu at the end. So, now that we have just a small sense of the accomplishments, intellect, and wisdom of Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, Advaita Chandra and I have a spontaneous, humble request from you, Prabhu. So a backstory was today, Adityanarayan Prabhu asked Advaita Chandra and I to brainstorm a name for this talk show, not just for today, but also future iterations of this session. And as we were brainstorming, I, myself, as an avid AI user, I took the shelter of ChatGPT to find some inspiration. But Advaita Chandra Prabhu here was not satisfied with the output at all. But it's okay, because we thought, who better to ask than the word master himself, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So we humbly ask you to do the honors and initiate this talk show and provide an official name for now and the future.
So you have to give me some suggestions. I'll do selection then.
So this is really basic, but we had initially thought of New Goloka talk show, but
Sorry?
a New Goloka talk show, but we were hoping for something maybe unique, catchy.
let's try to build on artificial intelligence. What was your broad idea? Do you have something specific in mind as such? You could play with the word Goloka and go look. You know. So it's like go and look for yourself. So let me think about it. By the end of the talk show, we'll think of something.
So, as we wait for our official name, Go Look sounds pretty good though. I like Go Look. I like the play on words. But now we officially welcome you to this podcast, and we're excited to have Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and we're also excited and honored to be hosting as your humble servants, Suvarna Radhika. And today we will be discussing a very important topic, God's plan for us. And the format of this will look like, we'll ask Chaitanya Charan Prabhu questions, he'll respond, and then around the midway point and at the end point, we will open the floor for any questions. But until then, please hold your questions either in your heads or your notes page app, and we will get to them as soon as possible. So, I think we have one more thing. I think we need a big Haribo to kick off the show. So all right, now that everyone is energized, we'll start with the first question.
We'll start with the prayers first.
Yes, Prabhu.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Te Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can better understand and apply the wisdom that you have shared with us through your texts and your traditions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So the first question we have today is, when something bad happens to us in our lives, should we see it as Krishna's plan?
And something bad happens, generally speaking, there are three reasons it could happen. One is that there's a natural cause for it. There is a human cause for it. And we ourselves are the cause for it. That means that, like say, accident happened. There's a natural cause, say, or a storm comes or something like that. Human cause is somebody was careless or somebody wanted to hurt us. And sometimes we ourselves do actions that get us into trouble. So now, when these things are happening at a day-to-day level, we do see that who is responsible for something. So when we look at, say, somebody has committed some mistake because of which, say, some big catastrophe happens, then that person will be legally held responsible. That person is responsible, has a responsible attitude, they will also feel morally responsible, isn't it? So when we talk about causality, often there are multiple levels of causality. It's a particular event. One event can have many causes. And understanding this is very important in the sense that right now we are having this podcast. So at this particular point, say we planned something and we are having this discussion. That's one level of causation. But beyond that, we have the New Goloka temple over here. Without that, this wouldn't happen, isn't it? So having this forum itself is another level of cause. Now, if Srila Prabhupada had not come to the West and not started Krishna conscious movement, then this would also not be here. So that is also a cause. So when we talk about cause, cause is always in a particular framework. At what level of causation are we talking about? So when we talk about God, God is the ultimate level of causation. So whatever causal frameworks we have, within them God is the ultimate. But when we talk about God as the cause, God is the ultimate cause for everything. So now when you talk about ultimate cause, it can go over a range. The range can be from intention to permission. So when we say not a blade of grass moves without the will of God, that will does not always mean intention. It can also mean permission. So for example, when Dushasan tried to disrobe Draupadi, that was not Krishna's intention. Not Krishna wanted Dushasan to do that. Dushasan wanted to do it and Krishna allowed him to do that. Now we can ask why Krishna allowed him. That's a question we will go to later. But the point is that everything that happens cannot be attributed to God as his intention. But nothing happens without his permission. So now intention means like I want it to happen, then it's my intention. Permission means, okay, you want to do it, I allow you to do it. So upadrashta anumantacha, which says I am the overseer and I am the permitter in 13.23 in the Gita. So from that perspective, when something bad happens to us, Krishna is the well-wisher of everyone. And he doesn't want anything bad for anyone. When bad things happen, Bhutanam yanmitha kali. In Kunti's prayers, it says that when there is distress in this world, that is because of the mutual interaction among people that the dissension and the distress arises. So it's not Krishna's intention to cause any suffering to anyone. So in that sense, bad things happening to us are not Krishna's intention. So at the same time, nothing happens without Krishna's permission. So even if it was a mistake from our side, even if somebody wanted to hurt us, it is not outside of Krishna's plan. When Bhishma is consoling Yudhishthir and trying to encourage him to take up his duty, at that time he says, Tasya anuvihito rajan. Tasya anuvihito, tasya anuvihito. And Prabhupada translates that as everything is within Krishna's plan. And that's a very significant point. Prabhupada is not saying everything is Krishna's plan. There's a difference between everything is Krishna's plan and everything is within Krishna's plan. So I'll give 2 examples to illustrate this difference and then we can move on to the next question. Everything is Krishna's plan and everything is within Krishna's plan. Say consider if there's a school or a university in which, say, a student fails in an exam. Now, was it the school's intention that the student fail? No. But even if the student fails, the school has a plan for such a student. If you fail in one subject, you move on to next year, but you do that subject again. If you fail in too many subjects, then better you do the same whole year again. So now the student's failing is within the school's plan. Now, of course, if a student fails repeatedly, then the school may say, you're out of our plan now. We can't. But that's not Krishna's case. So just as a school accommodates students who don't do what the school is intended for. Similarly, Krishna accommodates those who do something which is different from what Krishna would have wanted them to do. So in that sense, everything is within Krishna's plan. And why is it important to understand this? See, there are two different aspects. One is the aspect of culpability or blaming. That we can't blame Krishna for the bad things that happen to us. See, if we say everything is Krishna's plan, everything is Krishna's plan, then if we say yes, then Krishna becomes to be blamed for that. Then if it is no, then what it means is that, maybe Krishna had a plan for me and this person did this and now Krishna's plan is no longer working in my life. I am out of Krishna's plan. So that can lead to a lot of insecurity and desolation and hopelessness. So there is nothing that any jiva can ever do. We ourselves can't do, nor can anybody else do to us. That will be so bad that it will throw Krishna's plan in disarray, or throw our life out of Krishna's plan. So, in between is what? Is within Krishna's plan. So, everything is within Krishna's plan. So, the one more example you have to conclude this is, if you consider driving, if you have GPS. Now, say I just came from Charlotte, or Gopal was driving me. He saved 4 minutes in coming here expertly. So, now say the GPS said that turn right, and say we turn left. What does GPS do? Does the GPS say, you fool, you didn't obey me, get lost? So GPS doesn't say that. GPS reroutes. Now, is it conceivably possible that somebody can go maybe deep into the Sahara desert or somewhere into the Amazon forest and there's no GPS over there only? Maybe there are areas which are not mapped out by GPS at all. But GPS is also God's positioning system. And we are never out of God's positioning system. No matter how many wrong turns we take, there is always Krishna who is ready to reroute us and to get us back on the right track. Now sometimes we may take a wrong turn, sometimes somebody else may set us on a wrong turn. That's also possible. Now this does not mean that the wrong turns are not consequential. They are not fatal. They're not fatal in the sense that we are never thrown out of Krishna's plan. But every wrong turn means it will take more time. It will take more energy. That's why when we say that everything is within Krishna's plan, that does not mean that there is no such thing as a right or wrong choice. And there are wrong choices, bad things happen to us. And within that also, Krishna's plan is working. So, to summarize, everything is within Krishna's plan. Not that necessarily everything that happens is Krishna's intention, but nothing happens without Krishna's permission. And when Krishna allows something to happen, then he has a way to get things right back on track for us, no matter how much things may seem to be off track. Okay.
That was a really helpful answer. And actually, in fact, today I had some experience which is very similar to this question. On Thursday, Ivy League decisions came out, and I was talking to one of my friends, and she didn't get into the colleges she was hoping to get into. And she was expressing to me, she said, I worked so hard for all these years, I got nowhere, now I feel like I need to change my entire plan, my entire career. And I was like, I'm sure like everything will work out. It's just, rejection is redirection. And then she says, if God really had a plan, why would, people be, have cancer then? Like, I don't believe in what God says. I don't believe in religion. And at that point, I let it be because I figured they were upset. But I think this whole idea of how God has an intention, and even though it might hurt us a lot at the present moment, it's going to be good redirection, right?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
So this, why what I answered was slightly different from this point. I was talking more about, say, our mistakes or others' mistakes or our misdeeds or others' misdeeds. Now there could be some just natural events that happen. I didn't address that point. So when natural agents, we could say that there is no person who has made a mistake. Now we could always go and say it's our own karma coming back to us, but we don't know that right now. So when something bad happens to us, it is important to know that we have our perspective, and our perspective is valid. We have to function based on how we see things. But if anything, the advancement of knowledge, even in the domain of science, has taught us is that there is always so much more to know. It's like the more we have learned through science about the universe, the more we have learned that there is so much more to learn. In the past we thought, okay, atom is just one irreducible particle. And now as we studied, the atom seems to be a whole universe in itself, with as many fundamental particles as there are research grants. So the point is that we thought, okay, the space is vast, but to whatever extent we have gone into space, from there we saw it's far bigger than what it is. So in one sense, we could put it as humility is that the more we know, so what we know expands. What we know expands, but along with that what happens is our knowledge of what we don't know. It's not just what we don't know expands, our knowledge of what we don't know also expands. So let's not consider our perspective to be the final perspective. Yes, right now this looks bad to me, and nobody is denying that it is not bad the way it feels to us. But is this the only way? Maybe something good will come out of this. And let us not become completely devastated or rejected. This is my way of looking at things, and maybe there is a bigger plan. And ultimately, all of us have to have choices to make. What is the choice? That there are first two choices. Okay, let's put it this way. This is about this whole point of a divine plan. First choice is that either I am the controller or I am not the controller. Now, when I am using the word controller, I am using the ultimate controller. Now, even a little conduct of life helps us realize that I am not the ultimate controller. Now, if we don't realize that, then we really need an ultimate controller. Only a person who is completely mentally unstable will think I am completely in charge of everything in my life. Now, if I soon understand that I am not the ultimate controller, then there are three options. I use the acronym FAN for this. That there is an ultimate controller, I am not the ultimate control, then there is an ultimate control that is favorable to me, there is an ultimate control that is against me, or there is an ultimate controller that is non-existent or non-caring, which basically would mean the same thing from our perspective. Now, among these three possibilities, if there were an ultimate controller against me, then that creator could have that controller could have destroyed me long ago, isn't it? If there is some tyrant, in some dictator kind of state, and there's one dissenter, the only way the dissenter can survive is the dissenter is out of reach of the tyrant. Now, if there is a supreme controller, then we could have been destroyed long ago. So the very fact that we exist right now suggests that the ultimate controller is unlikely to be against us. Now, we could say, okay, the ultimate controller doesn't exist or is favorable to me. Now, we could say that ultimate control doesn't exist, But then, if we just look at our own lives, our very existence requires so many factors beyond even our knowledge, let alone our control, for it to be possible. We are breathing oxygen right now. We need the temperature to be at a particular range. We need our bodies to function in ways we don't even know about. So that there is nothing in charge, no organizing principle. Now this is, even from the evidence of science, it's a little difficult to sustain. So then the question comes, the only possible reason that the ultimate controller is favorable to me. Now, there are times when that ultimate controller may appear unfavorable to me, which is okay, we all understand that. But the possibility could be that right now, this seems to be unfavorable. But if we look back at our lives, now we all can think of times when something seemed very bad at a particular time for us. But maybe a few months, few years down the line, we saw actually this opened some door for me, and that actually turned out to be good for me. This was a lesson that very early on my mother taught me. When I was about 1, I got polio. So basically, my mother took me to a nearby physician, nearby clinic. We were staying in a small town in India, in Maharashtra, and for a polio vaccine. And the fridge in which that clinic had kept the vaccine had a power supply outage the previous night, and the attendant had not noticed it. So when they gave me the injection, because the power supply was not there, so the germ percentage had increased because of the heat, and the vaccine, instead of preventing polio, caused polio. So I was about 1, and I don't remember that. I was just learning to walk. I fell down. I couldn't walk normally after that. But what I remember is that when I was about 2.5 or 3, a distant relative had come to meet us, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad that your son got polio." And my mother replied, I still remember her voice, very calm, clear, confident. He said, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." I don't know why she said that, whether it was just her hope, or whether she observed something, or maybe Krishna spoke it through her at that time for whatever reason. But somehow that stayed with me. And yes, I couldn't play outdoor game like other kids could. But when I started studying, I noticed that I could read fast, I could remember things well, I could articulate things fairly well. So it just settled that, this is one of my favorite phrases nowadays, is life is unfair. It's just a fact of life. But if you look at the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means sometimes we get less than what we deserve, and sometimes we get more than what we deserve. So I was talking with one boy, he was in America, only one university. He said, "I'm an atheist." Now most people who claim to be atheists, they are more psychological atheists than philosophical atheists. Philosophical atheists means they have done some philosophical reasoning and come to a conclusion that there is no God. Psychological atheists, they have had some bad experiences, because of which they just turned away from God. So we started talking, and then I asked him, what turned you away from God? So he said, I was born in a very religious family, Christian family. And he said, when I was 5, my parents were quite religious, we used to go to church regularly. But both my parents died in an accident. And we had no one. I had no one to take care of me. I was the only son. And none of the relatives were there to take care. So then, since I went to child protection, and then I was in many foster homes. I was in a very good university. So I said, how did you? So he said, from that time onwards, I just stopped believing in God. Why did God do something like this to me? So then I said that, okay, he was in a very good university. So I asked, it's remarkable that from foster homes you have got to such a good university. So he says, when I was around 12, 13, I was adopted by a very good family. They're not religious, but they took very good care of me, and that's how I'm here. So then I said, just hold on, okay. So you adopted when you were 12 or 13? He said, yeah. I asked him, in general, what is the probability of kids at that age getting adopted? So he said that it's extremely low. I was very lucky. I said, earlier you said that God was not fair to you. Why did he take away your parents? I said, are you being fair to God? I said, what do you mean? He said, when your parents passed away, you said why did God do that to you? But when you are adopted by a very good family, you are saying that is good luck. So, if you want to attribute both things to God or attribute nothing to God, isn't it? So, if a bad thing happens, then we say it's because of God, and if a good thing happens, we say it's good luck. Then, so ultimately, now it is tragic what happened to him, but in the big picture, what we may have something bad happening right now to us, which we feel we don't deserve, but then we will find that sometimes, if we are simply considering only the matter of deserving, sometimes we get some good things also happening to us, which we can't really strictly say that we deserve them. So in that sense, if we look at the big picture, there does seem to be some kind of organizing principle. So ultimately, we have to choose what worldview we are going to live with, and which is the worldview that is going to most empower us with hope and purpose. That there is an ultimate reality against me, that's just going to create us fear and paranoia in us. That there is no ultimate reality, that's only going to create a sense of loneliness and abandonment. And that there is an ultimate reality, and that is favorable for me. Now, exactly how that is favorable for me, I may not know that. But, in one sense, the Gita's message, if you want to summarize in two ways, in a very secular way, the conclusion of the Gita is, God is with me. Therefore, I will be with God. When Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava, nashto mohas mritulabdhva tat prasadan mayachyuta. He says that what he understands by all that is, by all that Krishna speaks, although Arjuna has to fight this terrible, terrible war, he understands that Krishna is in charge, and Krishna, through all that is happening, has a plan for me. Krishna is with me. And therefore, I will be with Krishna. Okay. Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful. I think I might just send this lecture. I really like that point. Life is unfairly fair. One of my friends at the NC State Bhakti Yoga Club, I asked them, I was like, how was Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's class today? And that was the exact point that they mentioned. And it was nice to hear it again today, because I'm sure the way you explained it, it was so applicable. And again today with the same scenario. And I'm sure this friend of mine would love to hear this lecture. So thank you so much, Prabhu. And now moving on to the second question. Let's say we make a mistake in our lives, then do we see the resulting situation as Krishna's plan?
Yeah, I think I made a mistake by answering this question beforehand. Well, it's not, we shouldn't blame Krishna, but at the same time we shouldn't become so hopeless that now Krishna's plan is ruined in my life. It's not that. We are meant to take responsibility for our actions, and if we make a mistake, we learn from it. Okay, what was it that led? What was I thinking when I did this? How can I improve the way I think? So our mistakes are not Krishna's plan, but Krishna's plan can work in spite of our mistakes and even through our mistakes. We have that beautiful story of Duryodhan trying to manipulate or use Durvasa Muni to try to get the Pandavas into trouble. And then he says, go to them after they have had their lunch. And then the Akshay Patra has become completely, after Draupadi eats it, there's nothing over there. The Pandavas panic. And sometimes what happens, we pray to Krishna, and that prayer seems to increase our trouble. So that's what happens. So Draupadi, she prays to Krishna, and Krishna comes and says, Draupadi, I'm very hungry. Can you have some food? And Draupadi thinks, first I go to feed the Durvasa, and I cannot feed Krishna. What am I going to do? But then Krishna says, just check. And he goes and he says that there is a little bit of a leaf. A shark is there on the Akshay Patra. And Krishna takes that. And now often the focus of that story is on how that Yasmin Tushtam Jagat Tushtam. Krishna takes a little morsel and everybody is satisfied. And that's the important part of the story. But the other part is that this is a precious vessel. Normally in our home, if we have some special silverware or some golden utensils which we keep for special occasions, then we'll clean it very carefully. So how is it that this little morsel of grain or food was remaining on that particular plate on that particular day? We might say there were there were a couple of maid servants who were so faithful to Draupadi. They said, even if you can't pay us, we want to come with you. We won't stay in this kingdom. So she had some attendants with her. Maybe they washed the utensil, they forgot to wash properly. Whoever it was, that morsel remaining there was apparently a mistake. But Krishna used that mistake to further his plan also. Okay.
It was very wonderful, Prabhu. The description of how, especially this, my mind is still stuck here. You know, as you said, secular way of looking at the Gita. God is with me and I will be with God. And that reciprocation between Krishna and his devotees, as you showed in the Akshay Patra pastime. But still the question may come that, you know, does Krishna really have a plan for each and every one of us? And like, if he has that plan, then, I mean, could it also be that life is going because of our present choices, past karma, right? And Krishna is looking over all of this, but what's actually going on is our past karma and present choices. It's just its own track.
Yeah. It's not necessarily this or that. In the Bhagavatam it says, Karmana Daiva Netrena. That yes, karma works, but Maya Adhyakshini Prakriti, even karma works under Krishna's supervision. So yes, whatever is happening to us is due to our karma. It is also a result of our choices. But all these things are working under Krishna's plan. So in that sense, that's why I started by talking about multiple levels of causation. So for each one of us, whenever we face a particular situation, what is important is to see what is the actionable level of causality that I can work at. So what is the actionable level of causality means? The same incident, I can attribute its cause to various levels. But what is it that I can do about it right now? When Abhimanyu is killed, at that time Arjuna comes back that day and he has fought an untiring war and he has destroyed many of the Susharman's soldiers. He's tired and he comes back. And then as he comes back, he starts somehow feeling a pit in his stomach. Something is wrong. And when he comes in, normally there is celebratory music welcoming the warriors back. This day there is a complete somber silence. And normally when he comes, the soldiers greet him, salute him. Today nobody is ready to meet his eye. You know, the pit in his stomach deepens. And then he starts thinking, what may have happened? Did anything go wrong? He remembers that in the heat of the war he had heard somebody was screaming far away. The Kauravas have formed a Chakravyuh. Now he was so caught in the thick of battle that it had not registered on him and he had not thought about it. Things did. The only person who could actually break a Chakravyuh was Abhimanyu. Did he? But he didn't know how to come out. Has anything happened to him? And as he entered in the pandal where they would meet the tent, his eyes straight went to first Yudhishthir. He saw Yudhishthir there. He went, his brothers were there, and then he saw the throne of Abhimanyu. That was empty. His heart fell to his legs and he looked towards Yudhishthir, not wanting to believe the evidence of his eyes. And he saw Yudhishthir's face was tear-stricken. And Arjuna collapsed on the ground. And initially, he started beating himself up. He said, I went in pursuit of my own glory when I was challenged. And I call myself a great warrior. I was not there for my own son. As Yudhishthira came forward and explained what had happened, Arjuna's lamentation increased. He said, surely when Abhimanyu was in last moments, he must have called out for me. What child would not call out for his father for help? Fie on me that I was not there for my son. And then, as his grief increased further, he started lashing out at his brothers. And he said, could not one of you protect my son? Fie on all of you. Are all your ornaments, are weapons just ornaments? And his words were like whiplashes, especially for Yudhishthira and Bhima on their face. At that time, Krishna pulled Arjuna into a side hug. And he said that, O Partha, bad things happen in this world to everyone, to the wise and the unwise. The difference is that when bad things happen, the unwise people act in ways that make things worse. The wise act in ways that make things better. Oh Arjuna, look at the faces of your brothers. They are in agony at the death of Abhimanyu just as you are. Please don't speak words that increase their agony. So, at that time, Arjuna pulls himself together. And then, Arjuna is going over the words that he has heard, the event that has been transpired. And he recognizes his brothers had made a reasonable plan under emergency. But it was Jayadratha who had foiled that plan. And therefore, he decides to take action against Jayadratha. So rather than saying, now we could have said Jayadratha was not the person who killed Abhimanyu. That was Dushasana Durjay. Oh, there were 6 warriors who attacked Abhimanyu together. Arjuna could have targeted any of them. So now, why did Arjuna focus on this particular level of causality? It was that his brothers had made a plan, and although Abhimanyu fought heroically after being trapped inside the Chakravyuh, but the moment the Chakravyuh was closed, more or less his fate was sealed. It was just a matter of time. That Abhimanyu survived for so long was extraordinary. But the point is that instead of thinking that, is everything the plan of Krishna? Does Krishna have a plan for everyone? No, it's a more productive question to ask is, what is Krishna's plan in this? What is the best way I can serve Krishna in this? So once we start going in this zone, is this event Krishna's plan? Is this action Krishna's plan? Is that action Krishna's plan? No, we have no way to know that, isn't it? What we do know is that we are meant to be servants of Krishna. That is our eternal position. That Vamayvamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhutaha Sanatana. We are eternal parts of Krishna. Now we may use this truth that we are eternal parts of Krishna. We are parts of Krishna eternally. We often use it to refute Mayavad, that we don't merge into Krishna. That's a philosophical truth. But it has a very important psychological implication. If we are parts of Krishna eternally, that means we have parts in Krishna's plan.
Haribo.
And eternally. So the idea is, we will always be parts of Krishna. Like say suppose somebody is a part of the Indian cricket team, somebody is a part of the American baseball team. Then if you are a part of the team, then you have a part in the team. Now, it is important for us to play our part. So we will always be a part, will always have a part in Krishna's team. And we need to play our part. Now exactly, rather than thinking, as I said, what is my part? My part is to be of service, to act in a mood of service to Krishna. And therefore, what does service mean? Service, it doesn't just mean, okay, come to a temple and do some puja, clean some vessels. That's all important, no doubt. But ultimately, service means that Krishna is the well-wisher of everyone. Krishna wants the best for everyone. Krishna wants the best for me. Krishna wants the best for everyone. So, if I truly have a mood of service to Krishna, then the question I would be asking is, okay, how can I make the best of this situation? So, whether the situation coming into my life is specifically Krishna's plan, that question will always leave us a little uncertain. So, rather than whether this is Krishna's plan, what is Krishna's plan in this for me? That is a more productive question. Okay, so how can I serve Krishna in this situation? We keep that mood, then we'll always be positive and purposeful. When Srila Prabhupada came to America here, he wrote that song Markine Bhagavad Dharma. So there, what does he say? That Ache kichu karja tabe ei anumane. Nahe keno ani bena ei ugrasthane. So he says, my dear Lord, you must have some purpose for me. Otherwise, why would you bring me here? So, in one sense, bhakti has this combination of certainty and uncertainty. Certainty is that Krishna is in charge, Krishna has a part for us. The uncertainty may be, what is exactly Krishna's part for me? Now this, if we focus on the uncertainty, it can cause us insecurity, but instead that uncertainty can be seen as curiosity. So it's not that Krishna has a pre-programmed one plan for each one of us. And it's like a thin, narrow path. If you don't go along this path, you go 1 centimeter away from that path, you are out of Krishna's plan. It's not, Krishna doesn't want us to be like a pre-programmed robot and you have to absolutely follow that robotic programming. Krishna wants each one of us to be individual. And individually, we use our God-given intelligence to make the best of the situation that we are in. So in that sense, yes, Krishna does have a plan for each one of us. That plan, in the big picture is, Krishna wants us to be of service. Try to make the best of whatever situation we are in. Now, exactly how we will do that, now that is something which we have to discover. Okay.
That was very insightful. It crossed through many different areas. And I love the point of how you were emphasizing that rather than thinking, how is this a part of Krishna's plan? What's Krishna's plan in this particular situation? And I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit in another direction with this, but how do we know that we're in that, plan? When we're searching for that plan of Krishna in this, what does that mean? How exactly do we do that? How do we know we're acting in accordance with that plan of Krishna? Or is that a question to ask in the first place?
Yeah, so it's basically, let's try to look at it from one perspective. You say that if you don't follow Krishna's plan, you are doomed. And unless you are completely pure, you cannot know Krishna's plan. So then what do we do at that time? Isn't it? So are we meant to be doomed? Not exactly. So Krishna provides us many resources. Krishna provides us our spiritual master, Krishna provides us scriptures, Krishna provides us our own conscience, Krishna gives us the holy names. So by all these, we try to tune our consciousness to Krishna. But eventually, it is a matter of our attitude of service. We try to pray and we try to serve. So now what we do with the best intention, with the best intelligence that we have, sometimes it may take us straight along Krishna's path. Sometimes we go off track, we realize, and we learn and come back. And maybe that learning is also something which will help us. So Krishna, rather than worrying so much, whether what I'm doing right now is Krishna's plan. That's what the key thing is. It's not that Krishna has some like a pre-programmed path for us. It's, if you consider there's a top of a mountain, there's an ocean. Now, a river that emerges from the top of the ocean, mountain is meant to go to the ocean. So that ocean is Krishna. And we individual souls are like the river. So each one of us is meant to reach the ocean of Krishna. Now the impersonalists use this metaphor for the idea of merging into Krishna. The devotees use it that our consciousness incessantly keeps flowing towards Krishna. Gange Vaugham Udanvati, as Kunti Maharani prays. But the idea here is, Chakravarti Pad gives a, not Chakravarti Pad, it is Vedanta Deshika, the Sri Vaishnava commentator, he gives a very interesting twist to this. He says that different rivers will find their individual paths to the ocean. And each river, while it is going to the ocean, will do good to hundreds and thousands of life forms who get water from it. Like that, we are all meant to serve Krishna. And while we are serving Krishna and trying to reach Krishna, we do good according to our capacity along the path that we are going in the world. So that's how it is. And so rather than worrying that, whether right now I'm in Krishna's plan or not, just use our best intelligence and do the best that we can, and we learn. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says sometimes if you find you're gone off track, you don't have to go back to point zero. You can do course correction from there and come back on the track. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. At this point of time, we can maybe have one question from the audience. Okay, sure.
So asking this question was Krishna's plan or the Advaita's plan?
We can make it quick. Yes.
It was Krishna's plan acting to Advaita's plan. Yes, please.
Considering the atmosphere that our country is in, there's a lot of interpretations on where you want to consider that. With this kind of uncertainty in this climate, what do you think is the best advice that we can give each other as a community? How do we respond to the atmosphere that's happening in our country, and what opportunity does it present? Because the danger seems so great right now.
Yeah.
Many people, it seems that now is a good time to be looking towards these teachings, and so I think there's a lot of people who are feeling a lot of fear in the U.S. And so I'm just curious, what do you think is a good teaching now in this moment for all of our community and our people?
Yeah. So, first point I would like to make is, yes, things are quite turbulent as compared to a few years ago, maybe much more as compared to a few decades ago. However, if you look at the big picture of recorded human history, history has always been very turbulent. Probably the time from the Second World War till this Ukraine-Russia attack, or maybe before that we had a few wars here and there. No, the Western world enjoyed a phase of not having any wars that has no precedent in the last 2000 years. The maximum peace that, when the Western world, I'm talking mainly about Europe, because what we know about American history is largely after the European settlers came over here. We don't know much more about that. But if you consider Europe's history, the longest period of peace that was there was, before this was, of 23 years. It's always wars happening. So history is harsh. And there is a tendency of the human mind to catastrophize the present situation. Things are terrible right now. And this is not to downplay the level of distress and fear and anxiety that is there right now. But it's just that we shouldn't catastrophize. Life has always been difficult. Now, having said that, in general, like one of the points I said, what is Krishna's plan in this for me? That we should try to be of a mood of service. So there's that curiosity and the certainty. Quite often, people who are sure that they are doing God's plan for the world, they often are the people who cause the biggest trouble for the world, isn't it? So it is, to some extent, quite presumptuous to think that I know what is God's plan and what I am doing is God's plan. Now, it is specifically, it's very difficult to know that. And the problem with thinking that I am doing God's plan is, it can very easily take away humility from us. The idea is that, maybe what I am doing needs some course correction. Maybe it's uninformed. But to the extent I am convinced that what I am doing is God's plan, I won't be ready to learn from anyone. So that's why, in principle, we want to have an attitude of service. And in that sense, we want to be doing God's plan. But in specifics, we always need to be exploring. So Srila Prabhupada, he was fully devoted to his spiritual master's service. But when an ordinary postman told him, Swamiji, you are spending so much energy in publishing these magazines, but people will throw magazines away in a short while. If you spend that much time writing books, that will be so much more productive. And Prabhupada said, yeah, this makes sense. So Prabhupada did say, I am Krishna's pure devotee, I know what I am doing. Who do you think you have to advise me? So, that certainty that he was serving Krishna did not stop Srila Prabhupada from having openness about how I can serve Krishna better. So, if some politician says, I am going to declare war against this country, and God has told me to fight against this country. That idea that God has told me to do this, and I am doing God's will by doing this. That can intoxicate a person with a very unhealthy level of certainty. A level of certainty that takes away the person's humility. So for each one of us, with our understanding, how can I raise my consciousness? What can I do to make myself a little more spiritual, a little more stable, a little bit more agent of sanity, stability, spirituality in this world? So if we do our part and we do the best according to our intelligence and we stay open to learning how we could do better, then I think that attitude of service leads to both the attempt to do to make a positive difference, while having the openness that maybe there could be a better way to make a difference also. So, as having that disposition that if I have a small circle of influence right now around me, let me try to spread peace, let me try to share spirituality, let me try to be agent of as much calmness and wisdom as much as I can be, rather than thinking that, passing categorical judgments about this person or that person. Srila Prabhupada would say there is no use of crying for world peace unless there is the awakening of divine consciousness within the individual. So we all can try to do that part. Okay, thank you. Good question.
Yeah, time is running low, so Vamshi Gopal Prabhu had raised his hand, so we'll get to his question.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time and association. We could clearly see Krishna spoken through your mother. We could see the level of intellectual you have. Sometimes I read some of your books. Sometimes it's difficult to understand the statements also. So the words.
1 year.
Not in a negative way. Yeah. I'm from
a few years ago. After hearing this, I would have been flattered. Now I am concerned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Advaita Chandra as a plan for me. So given do we need to make our own plans? Like how can we make our plans given Krishna as a plan for us? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes you hear this saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Now, this is not a scriptural saying, this is a statement by an American comedian. So, now I would say that if we look at Arjuna, after the Bhagavad Gita, he heard it, he said, Karishye vachanam tava. At this, he said, I will do your will. But then, during the Kurukshetra war, every day the Pandavas were making a plan. They had a strategy. Now, today we will face this particular contingent of the Kaurava army. Today this warrior will challenge that warrior. Today that. So war is a serious business. And strategies are important. Planning is important. So if we are serious about anything, now we want to make our best effort to do it as well as we can. Isn't it? Now if we have some guests, special guests coming to our home, we would like to cook the best possible things for them. Now we'll say, I want to be dependent on Krishna. Well, yes and no. We want to be dependent on Krishna. When I had started giving spiritual talks about 30 years ago, so I was given a guideline by one senior devotee, or 10 guidelines about how to speak in Krishna's service. So the last guideline was depend on Krishna. But followed by in bracket, depend on Krishna, but only after you have prepared your class. So the idea is that whatever capacity we have to do something, we need to use that capacity fully. See, Krishna is the ultimate controller. Krishna is the Parameshwar. Now, we are all parts of Krishna. And because we are parts of Krishna, we all have a certain level of controlling capacity. So, now our controlling capacity is not a bad thing. It is, our controlling capacity is meant to be used in the service of the Supreme Controller. The controlling mentality itself is not the problem. If the controlling mentality leads to the mentality that I am the Supreme Controller, that is the problem. See, Krishna uses this in two ways in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 16th chapter, when he talks about the demoniac mentality, in 16:14 he says, Ishvaro aham aham bhogi. That mentality that I am the controller, that is the demoniac mentality. But then, if you go to a little later to 1843, he's talking about 1842 to 43, 44, he's talking about the Kshatriyas, the four Varnas. One of the qualities of the Kshatriyas, he says, is Danam Ishvara Bhavascha. Ishvara Bhav. Now, Ishvara Bhav could mean what? The mentality of being a controller. Interestingly, Prabhupada translates that as leadership. Now, like some people are just natural leaders. Now, if there's a lot of crowd and a lot of chaos, some people will naturally take leadership. You can go this way. Let's stop people from going this way. Some people just have the natural leadership ability. So, whenever we say somebody is expert in something, what does that mean? They have a great controlling ability. If you say, I recently last couple of years, I started writing this and explaining things. So I was in Nasik. I did a program. One of my school teachers, she came for one of my talks. And after attending the talk, I was talking with her, and she said, I asked her what her thoughts. She said, I should have been harder on you in your childhood to improve your handwriting. So, now when we say somebody has very good handwriting, what does it mean? That basically means they have a great capacity to control how their hand moves when they write something. Somebody is a very good singer. What does that mean? They have great control on how their throat and their voice produces sound. So expertise is actually nothing but a very precise controlling mentality or controlling capacity, you could say. But then when Arjuna says Amogha Sharam, he always hits a target. What does that mean? That means he has the capacity to control where the arrow he has shot will go. So the capacity to control is actually itself not a bad thing. It is what we are using the capacity to control for. And our capacity to control can improve through proper planning. Now, say if you have to cook some food, we can cook food spontaneously also. Some people, whatever is, they come to a place, say, okay, see what is in the fridge, let's find out, and within that, whatever is there, they improvise and make a great meal. Now that's great. But if they had facility, if they could plan more, they could definitely do something much better, isn't it? So like some devotees, last moment you tell them to give a class, still they give a great class. But if they had more time, they could give a better class, isn't it? Naturally. So if we can plan, we can actually do a better service. Because while there is the controlling capacity is to some extent determined by innate ability. But the controlling capacity is also determined by the planning that we put in, the forethought that we put in. So the problem is not with making plans. The problem is with becoming attached to our plans and assuming that our plans have to work. And if they don't work, getting very frustrated by it. So just like we say, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That Krishna says, do your work. And in fact, you have a right to do your work, but don't be attached to the results. But it's interesting, the same series, Krishna says before that in 241, 6 verses earlier, this 247. 241 he says, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurnandana. He says, be fixed in one goal. Don't have hundreds of ideas. Bhavushakaya anantascha buddhayo vyavasayina. So have one goal means make a proper plan. Put your heart into it. But don't be attached to it. So the idea is whatever controlling capacity we have, we want to use it fully so that we can offer the best service. But another aspect of having a mood of service is to remember that we are not the supreme controllers. And therefore, if sometimes our things don't work according to our plan, then that is okay, we accept that. So service attitude has both these aspects simultaneously. One aspect is accepting our limitations. That we all have particular limitations within which we are going to function. Say somebody is a caretaker of a home. Now they're the caretaker, they're not the owner. They cannot do major renovations. They cannot do major reconstruction. But if they are the caretaker, whatever is there, they have to take care of that, isn't it? So within our limitations, accepting our responsibility within our limitations. So both are parts of service attitude. First is I accept my limitations. Second is within these limitations, I have the responsibility of doing the best that I can. So in one sense, planning is about accepting our responsibility and not being attached to our plans. Not being attached means that if the plan doesn't work out, we don't become too agitated. We don't become so frustrated that we just give up everything. That's not healthy. It's a hold our plans. We make our plans, hold our plans lightly, and hold our Lord tightly. Sometimes we do the opposite. We hold our plans tightly and we hold our Lord lightly. Our plans don't work. Why did Krishna not help me? Why is Krishna not? I don't care for Krishna only. So that should not happen. Okay. Thank you.
Beautiful, using our innate desire to control in that way to just make our plan and hold our Lord tightly though. That plan, yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's such a good point, and that brings me to my next question. When everything in our plan goes wrong, how do we still keep that faith that we're still going according to Krishna's plan?
Yes. Krishna, his plan can work in many different ways. Sometimes Krishna's plan can work through our plan. That means we make a plan to serve Krishna and Krishna's plan works through our plan. So we decide to do a 6-session Gita course. Then we are trying to share Krishna's message. We create a broad structure and we share Krishna's message through that structure. Sometimes Krishna's plan works through our plan. Now sometimes Krishna's plan works in spite of our plan. Isn't it? That means, our plan was actually quite disruptive. Our plan was not a very good plan. But Krishna's plan works in spite of us. And now sometimes Krishna's plan may work by completely crushing our plan. Isn't it? If you see, that's what happened to Srila Prabhupada for many years of his life. Prabhupada's plan was that he will run a business, and an astrologer had said that you may become one of the wealthiest people in India. So Prabhupada worked very hard. If you see, now I'm going to embarrass myself here.